I'm Janet Clark, and this is The Freedom Shift. Hello, it is Janet here on The Freedom Shift Podcast, and we are here today to talk about the heart flow sales conversation. Now, many of you have heard me say that I have a process which I call heart flow, and it's just a way of having a sales conversation that isn't probably a heck of a lot different than how you probably do your sales conversations. But here's how heart flow came about. I recognized that selling in a transformational economy is a little bit different than selling, say, in a B2B space where you're selling to somebody who is spending the corporation's money. So typically in our transformational economy, if you're a coach or a consultant, you may be selling to the business owner, that entrepreneur who is actually going to be spending their own money for transformation. And if you do some other sort of coaching, whether it's life coaching, spiritual coaching, health coaching, or whatever, you probably also are talking to the person who is going to be investing in their own transformation. So when I looked at sales, and I've been in sales for many, many years, decades, to say the least, I recognized that, yes, we all know the science of selling. There's a science and a psychology to selling. And then there's the art of selling. And the art is where we bring our own personality into it. We work on making our connection in a way that's more real for us as an individual. And so most of you who have ever heard me talk know that I'm not a big believer in scripts, and that I really feel that a sales conversation should be more real and it should flow. But yes, there is an underlying science to the way that the conversation is going to flow. So when I looked at how have I been selling these 100K programs, 60K programs, and millions of dollars of transformational programs, and really the way that I've been doing it is by connecting with people at, I'm going to call it the heart level, like getting into what is their dream, what is their vision for their life, what is their purpose, why are they considering making a change, investing in something that's actually going to bring them transformation. And when you start talking to people at that level, it really comes from a different place. And so I recognized that the way that I was having these conversations did have a flow to it, did have the baseline of the science of selling to it, but it also had that component of connecting with people on a more heartfelt and sometimes even a little bit of a spiritual level. So yes, I am a spiritual person, and I will be bringing that into some of my podcasts, but whether you're spiritual or not doesn't really matter in terms of whether you could use the heart flow sales process. So today, I'm just going to give a high-level overview of what the heart flow sales conversation would look like and explain to you why it works. So if you're someplace where you can write down heart flow is an acronym. So you could write it down the side of the page, HEARTFLOW, heart flow. So technically, there are 9 stages to the heart flow sales process. They go relatively quickly, but I've been able to identify these 9 stages that you would take the prospect through. Now, I actually have a handout, which is a PDF, which explains this and is actually a template that you could use when you were on a sales call. So if you would like that, then you can click the button that's on the podcast page, the Freedom Shift /podcast, and you will find a way to get the HeartFlow template that you can download there. But you don't need it for what we're going to be doing right now. So let me talk about each one of these little phases of the conversation and explain to you how the conversation flows when you're doing this. So H stands for hello, right? It's literally the moment when you get the opportunity to build some rapport with your prospect. So you're having some small talk, you're finding out who they are, where they are, what they're all about, right? It's a short little opportunity to figure out why they're there, and where they're coming from and what you might have in common. So we all know that as rapport building. E stands for explain. So it's really important on any sales call, and I think most of you will agree, that you take control of the call, that you are leading the call. So you want to establish that leadership right up front. So E would be explain how the call is going to go. So you might say something like, over the course of the next 45 minutes, what I really want to do is see if you're a good fit for some of the programs that we have to offer, or the program, or whatever. See if it would make sense for you to be a part of this program that we offer. And in order to do that, I am going to be asking you, some questions. And again, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can say in here, but basically you're going to assure them that this is an opportunity for you to get to know them, to dig a little bit into what it is that they're looking for, and that at the end, you're going to be steering them in the right direction. So you let them know that at the end of the call, I may or may not feel like this is a good fit. We may not, we may agree that this isn't really the right place to go, but no matter what, I'm going to be able to advise you on a great next step for you to get what you want. So in my explaining step, I usually do let people know that I'm very well connected. I invest a lot of money in networks. I have a lot of resources available, and I know a lot of people that I can connect them up with. So whether it's my program that's going to be able to be helpful for them or something else, I'm going to be able to direct them. So then at the end of that little explain, make sure they're good with that, right? Is that okay with you? Does that sound good, right? You're just checking in. Then comes A, which is ask. Now, the ask stage, so many people have said to me, well, do you have a list of questions? Well, of course I have a list. I have lists and lists of questions that you could actually ask people. And technically, depending on what you're selling and how qualified the prospect is, which you would already know that because more than likely they filled out some sort of an application before they came into the call. But the ask section is all of those who, what, when, where, why, how type of questions, open-ended questions. Now, I don't like to say to people, here's the 10 questions that you need to get answered in this section, because when you ask one question and they give you an answer, that is what is going to determine what your next question is going to be. So if you're a good listener, you shouldn't even know what your next question is going to be, because it should be depending upon what they actually said to you when you asked the question before that. But a lot of the times, once you get really used to selling a certain program, you start to know all the objections that people are going to have down the road to that program. And I like to hit those up front. So sometimes I'll have money conversations with people at this point. If I'm talking to somebody about their business, I might be asking them, like, what have you invested in your business so far? How has that worked out for you? What are you planning to invest in your business this year? What's the growth that you're looking for? How's your profit? It's not always about revenue, right? And so there's a lot of different questions that are going to be asked. And one of the things you want to find out during this ask is, what's the problem? Like what's the thing that's in the way? And of course, you would have had to establish, well, what are you trying to accomplish? So that you can get a clear picture of, here's this person, they're standing on one side of the cliff, and across the cliff is where they want to go. And they don't really know how to get there. And we'll ask them questions like, well, what have you already tried? Right? What's been working? What hasn't been working? How important is this to you? Like, what's the time frame that you really want to resolve this problem? Is this a now problem, or is this something that you're just kind of thinking about? You'd like to get this transformation to happen. So again, there's a whole host of different questions, and I do have a list of some of them, but I always caution people that this is an area where your intuition is going to come in so that you kind of know what kind of questions you really need to ask in order to really determine, is this person a good candidate? Now, I'm going to say something here that might be surprising or may not be to you, but there is an opportunity right at this point to end the call. And so some people do a little bit of a discovery call prior to a sales call, where they actually do these first three things and spend some time asking these questions to determine if this person is even a good candidate to go forward and have the rest of the conversation with. So if you have determined at this point that the person is not in dire need to solve the problem, does not have resources, has not even considered that they are going to have to make an investment, doesn't have a way to do that, it might be a good time to end the call and just say, based on what you're telling me right now, it doesn't sound like I'm going to be able to help you with the programs that we have available. However, here's a resource that I might recommend for you. Maybe you send them off to read a book or take somebody else's training course or something. Okay, so that was A. Once you get and you feel good that you really have a good handle on where they are in their readiness to move on, then R stands for recap. So you kind of regurgitate it back to them, right? So this is what you told me that you want, but the challenge for you is this. And the reason you're struggling is because this, and you don't have XYZ, and that is costing you this. So I usually do like to figure out, what is the cost of inaction if they don't solve this problem? So I'll recap for them kind of what I heard, make sure that they're in agreement with what I heard and that we're both on the same page. T is something that's a little bit different than something you might be doing right now or you might have been taught to do. But I have T as standing for teach. Now, this actually is a transition point where we're actually going to go into the process of getting ready to give the offer. But what I like about teach is that I like to stop here and teach them something that may be an aha moment for them. Now, I'm going to give you an example of that. When I'm selling to business coaches and consultants, I have recognized, because I've talked to thousands of them, that there are three things that the people who succeed do that the 80% who fail don't do. So to say that again, we know that 80% of entrepreneurs fail. They never really get their businesses off the ground. They're lucky if they create a consulting job for themselves, but they can only get so much revenue coming in. In fact, the average coach, I believe in the US, makes about $1,000 a month, which is ridiculous, right? So we want to kind of give people an aha moment. So what I do is I share something that I've learned from talking with these thousands of coaches and entrepreneurs and consultants who are trying to scale businesses up to 7 figures and higher. And I say, I've recognized that there are 3 things that the successful people do differently. Would you like me to share them with you? And of course, they say yes. So I say, okay, number 1, they get a mentor. They hire a mentor who's already done what they are trying to do, and they let that person guide them. Number 2, they immerse themselves into a community of people who are ahead of where they are. So if you have a 6-figure business and you want to be at a 7-figure business, you go hang around with people who are 7-figure business owners or close to that or striving to be that. So very often people will hang around with people who are struggling at the same place they are. And so the information that they get is inaccurate information about how to grow, because these people who they're hanging around with don't know how to grow. Also, our world is not really geared to entrepreneurship, our society in general. Now, a lot of you hang around with other entrepreneurs. So you say, well, yeah, there's a lot of entrepreneurs. Well, yeah, we are the minority, like for sure. But I'm sure most of you can also relate to the fact that there's people in your family, there's people that you hang out with, your friends, who think you're crazy because you're an entrepreneur. And they don't really understand why you don't just go get a job. And a lot of times, as coaches and consultants, we have some training in some other area, right? We have a degree in something. I mean, I have people who are in high ticket sales who used to be physicians. They used to be engineers. Now they're coaches and consultants, right? People who have like totally given up their profession because they weren't able to impact people in the way that they wanted to do. Now, the rest of the world, our society, is going to think you are crazy if you're doing something like that. So you want to surround yourself with people who are going to actually uplift you, who are going to say to you, no, what you're doing is amazing. You have a purpose. You're going to make a big impact. You can do this, because believe me, that makes a difference. And you want to hang around with people who are already at these levels of attainment that you want to get to in terms of your revenue growth, because they will make it seem easy, whereas the people who have never been there are going to make it seem hard. So number 1, you get a mentor who can get you where you want to go. Number 2, you immerse yourself in a community of people who are already where you want to be. And look, you got to pay to play. And I let people know this when I'm on the sales call. You are not going to go hang around with a bunch of people who are ahead of you unless you invest to be in that kind of a community. And the third thing is you implement systems, or the successful people implement systems. So people who have totally scaled their businesses, people who have built a business that actually thrives, they have figured out that they need systems in their business in order for that to happen, that they cannot be trying to do it all themselves. They can't do their own marketing, their own sales, their own fulfillment, and handle all the financial and operational things in the business as well. It just can't happen. So I take this teaching moment with people, and it is an aha moment. When they start realizing, aha, that is what I'm not doing. And that's why I feel like I'm the only one, because after a while, we all feel that way, like I'm the only one who can't figure this out. It's like I just gave them the insider secrets. So now I've taught them that. And I guarantee you, whatever it is you're selling, there are 3 things that people don't realize that they're missing out on, that if you taught them that, it would be indisputable with them. So I do the teaching moment, and then F stands for feelings. Then I ask them, well, how do you feel about what I just said? And most of the time, people are like, that makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, I get that, right? People aren't going to argue with you because you just taught them something that it's a fact, right? It's a truth. So they're going to be like, yeah, okay, that was eye-opening. Maybe they're going to say, yeah, I already knew that. Okay, great. So how do you feel about it? Right? So now you've established where they're coming from emotionally. At that time, they respond back to you. You give them some empathy. You're right there. Now you've really created a more emotional connection with people. Now you say to them, okay, would you like me to tell you about this opportunity? Like, based on everything you've said, I feel like you would be a good fit and we could really help you. Would you like me to explain to you how that would look? Right? And L stands for lay out the offer. Now, here's a caution. When you lay out an offer, that does not mean talking about the bells and whistles. It's high level. This is what this program is going to do for you. So, for example, what I might say if I was selling somebody's program is, let's take Ryan Levesque of the Ask Method, because I do some sales for him. I might say, okay, let me tell you about Ryan's coaching program. What Ryan has done is he has put together these 3 components that we know are the success factors for people building their businesses. So he's created a high-level coaching program that offers mentorship, a community of people that you can mastermind with, as well as the systems that you're going to need to implement to take your business to the next level. So that does not talk about when there's going to be 4 coaching calls and 3 group calls and 17 modules and the opportunity to go to a intensive weekend workshop, and there's going to be Ask Live. No, you don't have to go into all the nitty-gritty details. You want to talk at a high level about what the program is going to incorporate. What are the big things that they're going to get that they need, which of course are going to tie back to what you just taught them. And then you're going to talk about how that program is designed to get them the transformation that they already identified they wanted in the Ask portion of HeartFlow. Okay, so that's L. O is own the silence. So at the end of the lay out the offer, you have 2 options. Now, I usually throw the price in because most of the time, the people who I'm talking to, they already have some idea of the price. And so I don't wait necessarily for them to ask for it. I just throw it out there. However, you will do what works best for you. You've got your system. You can just lay out the offer and say nothing and let them then ask you, well, how much is it? Whatever you feel more comfortable with. However, I'm not one to withhold much of anything. I just kind of lay it all out there in the lay out the offer. But own the silence is after I lay it out and I say the price, I don't talk. And it's hard for me because, as you can tell, I like to talk. But I'm silent. And I give them a chance to let this thing circle around in their head and their thoughts to manifest, and let them come up with something. Because truly, I have no idea what's going on in their head. I have no idea what fear might be coming up for them. What tape is playing in their head? Is it the tape that, oh my God, if I do this, my wife or my husband's going to be like, not again? Or is it the tape that's, oh my God, is that all it is? I thought it was going to be a lot more than that. Or is it the tape of like, oh my God, I want this, but every time I invest in something, I screw it up and I fail? Or is it the tape, you know what? As much as I want to do this, like, what card am I going to put it on? You just don't know what's going on in their head. So it makes no sense to talk until you let them come up with something. Now, some people would say that O is the objections, but I don't like to think of anything as objections, right? I like to just think of it as this is an opportunity for them to share what's on their mind. So O is just own the silence and let them speak. Once they do, then you get the opportunity to wrap it up. And W is wrap it up. And that is what is it going to take to get them to give the deposit? make the first payment, say yes, right? Whatever needs to happen in your case to actually make that sale a wrap. So that's it. Our podcast for today is a wrap. You now know a lot more about heart flow, and I'm always happy to share the PDF and the template that I have and the little cheat sheet. So if you'd like that, go to thefreedomshift.com/podcast and it will be there. And until next week, have a wonderful, happy selling week, and I will be back with you as soon as you can blink an eye. All right, talk to you soon. Thanks for being here. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Freedom Shift Podcast. If you want more great information about increasing your sales, visit our website, www.thefreedomshift.com/podcast.